Welcome back to the channel, guys. Winks here. If you're playing Disgaea 7 and you want to learn how to master your classes instantly in a single battle, including these two, then stick around to the end. Even the Mecha Girl was mastered with a single fight. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Winks here once again. If you haven't already, go ahead and click those like and subscribe buttons. That way you never miss out on anything that I upload. So today's video, we are going to be discussing how to master your classes instantly in a single fight. Today's video is kind of building off the last video that I did. So if you haven't, go ahead and check that out, because as I mentioned in that video, when it comes to maxing your stats in Disgaea 7, there is always a series of steps that you have to follow. And if you haven't seen the previous video leading up to this one, you may have missed a step or two, so go check that out. Like I said in that video when we were discussing extract farmings, I kind of drew up on the screen for you kind of a flow chart to show you how that process worked. So today I'm putting up on the screen a nice little graphic for you where I kind of built off of that and added today's discussion and today's process into that to kind of show you visually a high-level overview of how this is all going to work, so you can keep that in mind as we're talking through these points. Which leads me into my next point. Today's video breakdown is going to go similar to that process that you're seeing. So first, we're going to talk about the things that you need and kind of some of the things you need to do in this game to create the environment, if you will, to pull this off. Then we're going to talk about the gear you need for your character to help facilitate that. Then we're going to talk about the abilities. I'm going to give you some points on that. We're going to talk about the ability setup. Then we're going to talk about classes and kind of go into a little more detail on classes. And then I'm going to demonstrate to you how this all comes together, which is probably why you're here, and how this works. And we'll wrap it up with a summary like we always do. So as a refresher, if you remember in the last video when we were talking about extract farming, I explained to you that your stats kind of turn into RP, your RP turns into extracts, and then it kind of cycles back into your stats with those extracts like a closed loop system, and that was considered step one. I also mentioned in that video that while you were using your stats to create RP and you were using that gotcha system, you were also unlocking certain Evilities, and I mentioned in that video that was more of mastering classes and that we talk about it in a later video. Well, this is that video. So what is needed? Well, there are two things that you need to have prior to even attempting this. Now, that doesn't mean you can't start to work on it now, but for this to come off as efficiently as I'm going to show you, you need to have unlocked all 1,400 points for class proficiency. Now, you're probably wondering, well, how do I unlock all 1,400 points? So I believe 600 of that comes from doing the story mode. I can't remember where I got the difference from, but I do believe you get some of these points naturally from completing steps in the story. I believe the ability to unlock this cheat shop becomes available in episode 2, if I remember correctly, and you just go to the Dark Assembly and you pass a bill for like 100 mana or something, and you can start using this cheat shop as early as episode 2, if I remember correctly. I could be off on the point at which it unlocks, but you can unlock it fairly early. But in order to get all of the points that you need, there are 4 quests to unlock Carnage mode, and each of those 4 are 50 CP each, which gives you a total of 200 CP. Clearing the 15 Carnage stages gain you an additional 20 CP each, which is accumulatively 300 CP. So right there, just by getting into the Carnage mode and beating those Carnage levels, you get an additional 500 on top of the 600, I believe. Once you defeat Normal Ball, you get 100 CP, and if you defeat Carnage Ball, you get another 200 CP. So after you've done all of that, you should have this 1,400 CP. So the next thing you're gonna need to make this possible is you're going to have to be in the Carnage dimension, and you should have unlocked the Martial Gahara maps, which are essentially just the martial training maps from like Disgaea 5 and 4. I think they call it something else in Disgaea 1, but you need to have this because in every Disgaea game, these are usually the maps that you're using to do your grinding and do this type of stuff on, because it has these 9x9 squares in here with enemies on it, and gives you a ton of EXP like you can see on the screen. So the way you unlock these, I believe these unlock, there's a bill in the Dark Assembly. I think it appears also around episode 2. It's called Train in the Martial Dimension or something like that, and it's 5,000 mana. I believe that one unlocks the normal one, but you need to have worked your way all the way to the Carnage version of this. So I guess you can think of this whole entire process as sort of like a late game method. Okay guys, so now let's talk about the gear that you need in order for this method to work. So you need either a sword or a fist, and the reason that you need the sword or a fist is because once you reach a certain level mastery, those have a 9x9 attack, and we are going to use that on the 9x9 square of enemies on those Martial Gahara maps that I was talking about previously. Now there are 3 ways to obtain this 9x9 attack. Like I said just a second ago, you can level your character's weapon mastery to level 50. Like I have Fuji here, his level weapon mastery is at level 75. There are abilities, you can use the cheat shop, and there are weapon properties to help with this process, but in my opinion, that is a complete waste of time and not completely necessary. The second way that you can do this is you can find a specific weapon through like the item world and item reincarnation, and you can get a sword or a fist with the sword technique 4 or the fist technique 4. Now, just like the first way I was talking about weapon mastery, this also takes time and is not necessary in order for this to be, pulled off for this method. You could just skip both of those processes altogether. The way that I recommend you do this, the way that I did it, and the shortcut to the weapon mastering, or just getting straight to the farming, however you will, is you take Hagan. Because if you remember in the story, there was a point in the story when they said that she was the greatest swordsman of all time or something like that.
Wow! So Shosai's are the strongest swordsman in all of Hinamoto, right? I'm so honored to meet you.
I've heard she's stronger than Mulgai. Who would have thought? The best swordsman in Hinomoto is a hot babe.
A swordsman? But the spear you have on you is the one Crimson Dark had. Banji Tadakatsu, isn't it?
All you do, and as you can see here, her weapon mastery level is weapon level mastery 50 right from the beginning by default as soon as you get her. So what you need to do is you need to take her and you need to put her in the skill trainer squad, and you need to make her the leader of that squad, and then take whatever character your mastering class is on, for in my case it's Valvatores, and put them in that squad. Once you have done that, that character, whether they're level 50 weapon mastery or not, will have that 9x9 attack, which you can see here. His weapon level mastery for the sword is at 0, but when you go to his abilities, I've got that 9x9 attack because I put Hagan in that squad and he inherits her skill. This will bypass having to farm for that property, and you will not have to waste additional time trying to get their weapon mastery level up, should you so choose so. Once you have that character in here and you've got this ability, move that ability to the top, because you can swap these around. Just move it right here so you don't have to cycle through it, and then take them to the skill shop and upgrade or enhance that ability to at least level 8. You can go as high as level 9, but level 9 is not really sustainable. You'll have to come back out and refresh your SP a lot more. So I recommend level 8, maybe even level 7, just to keep that consumption of SP down. You'll have to do some experimentation on your end to figure out where that level is at, but I recommend level 8. Also, in lieu of the gear that you need and what I recommend, I also recommend that you start getting some of these glasses and you start putting them through the item world. You can do the automatic one and just reincarnate them because you're not really concerned with getting the stats up on these. You really just want the properties to roll. I would start putting some of these through early on and start getting these class proficiency properties. Because that can add a ton of additional class proficiency, and you are going to need these in order to master that 256 class for the Mecha Girl and the Celestial Angel, the higher ones. You need those on here in order to do those in a single fight. So I recommend that you use these as well, as many as you can get. Mine currently has an additional, or is adding an additional 165% extra to what the cheat shop is giving me. Now it's time to talk Evilities, which is the real bread and butter for this technique, right? So there are two ways that you can do this. One is better than the other, just like I mentioned in the last video for extract farming. So I am going to mainly be discussing the better one, but I will kind of go over the lesser of the two, because there are two ways to do this. There's one with the DLC, and two, there is one without the DLC. Now, if you don't have the DLC, which I completely understand, it is going to be less efficient. But if you have the DLC, or at least some of the DLC, I recommend that for this process. And I'm going to go over some of that as well. So, as you can see here on the screen, I've pulled up Valvatores because he's the last one that I did this one with. When you start a fresh character, they only have 5 Evility slots. And when you max their level out at 9,999, they have 14 Evility slots. And as you move through mastering those classes, you unlock more as you go. So I have nearly all of his mastered, which I will show you. I was saving the last 2 for my demonstration, but I have all except those 2 mastered. Except these 2, right? Because, like I said, I'm going to save these for the demonstration. I'm going to show you here in a minute how this works. I've already tested it. But anyway, so for the abilities, I have 23 ability slots. Once I master those last 2, there will be 24, right? So we're going to kind of talk through this as if you had already reached this point, because I want you to see the full list of abilities here to get to the point where you can do those last 2 classes, right? So for my first one, I've just got absorption. That comes on him by default. It's his unique. Don't really worry about that one. You don't really need it. Assault attack is good because it gives you more damage. You have to master the Valkyrie completely to unlock this one, so you won't have this when you have it 14 ability slots. Most likely you have to do that one first, do the Valkyrie. But that'll give you a little bit extra attack to deal with those demons on Marshall Gahara. Also, Taste of Victory. Taste of Victory comes from the Overlord Gacha system, because remember, back when I was in the last video, I was telling you not only are you converting those stats into RP when you're rolling that gacha, you're also unlocking some of these abilities. You get scrolls for them. Taste of Victory is one of them. The Overlord Gacha is the level 7 tier for that, and is also the highest one that you're gonna need. So once you reach level 7, you can start doing this technique if you've got the DLC and you've got Marshall Gahara. The next one is Career Master. Career Master comes from the Demon Lord Gacha, the level 6 tier. Demonic Angel. Demonic Angel is the DLC ability that increases the attack power by 50% when attacking demons. Those are demons on that stage, so this gives you an extra 50% attack for them. When you start out, you're probably going to have career trainee as one of your main ones for the 14. That comes from the mid-tier gacha. Daily training is one that you're gonna need. That is another DLC that comes from Adele. It gives you 50% extra class and skill EXP. And then you've got, of course, all the other just regular class proficiencies that come from that gacha system. You've got Pro Class Changer, which is another 75%, Class Changer, which is 40%, and then, of course, like I said, the 20% trainee that you'll have. So all of these are just boosting that the class proficiency in addition to the cheat shop and in addition to those properties on your weapon. So you're just adding a ton to that. Now, if you are struggling to kill those demons, I would not sacrifice CP for attack power. What I would do if I were you is I would utilize the Wicked enhancement, because there is one in here that you can, there's I think like 200 and something different combinations to this stuff that you can do, because there's 7 choices without replacement. It goes 7 times 6 times 5. You do the math. So, but there's one specific combination in here that will give you a little bit of critical, and it also makes your attack become wind power. Those demons are weakest to wind power. So if you're struggling, use this in place of, you know, compensating with your abilities for the additional attack power. Now, for your other Evilities setup, if you don't have the DLC, what I recommend, and what I'm going to show you, is a different setup. Let me see. Class. Here we go. This is the setup, and I don't have one of them to load, but you can see the setup regardless. So I recommend Workshop Intern, Class Changer, Pro Class Changer, Career Master, and Number Padding. Number padding is different. That comes from the Evilities Scholar Squad after 50 battles, and the reason that I recommend that is because if you don't have the DLC and you don't have all those properties in your weapons yet, you are going to have to incorporate the auto battle into your process. It will be slightly longer, but the auto battle will shorten some of this farming process. You can set up your demonic intelligence, and you can, you know, get your setup right and just have that auto battle run, because there's a feature in Disgaea 7 that's like skip battle as well, which you can unlock. And once you have done it one time, you're gonna have to do some math on your part. You're gonna have to go into your character after you run that map one time and look at their status and just look at how much of a value you are getting each time you kill one of those demons. Like here, it'll tell you like how much. You can just do the math. So like once you start getting to those higher stars, it'll tell you how much class you have to get remaining, and you just hit them one time, do the math, calculate the difference, and then you can figure out the number of runs you need to do. So then you can do that for each type of class, because there's 4 types: 96, 128, 64, and 256. Those are your 4 types, each progressively more runs as you go, right? But you can do the math. You can just hit them one time, figure out how much you got from that one run, take the difference, divide it by your remaining amount, and figure out how many runs per each type, and then you'll know how to incorporate that auto battle. The number padding is for as you're doing that, parallel to that, you need to be doing the quests that give you the poltergeist, which I'm looking here to see which one it is. Let me see, right here. So you need these 3 right here. So as you're doing that, that number padding is giving you double the amount to this quest. And every few iterations, whether it's 4 or 5, I can't remember how many it is, but every so often you can go back and collect this and just keep adding it to the auto battle that you're incorporating to keep that process going. I think when I was doing this, I think I was able to do each one about 1 battle each. And then the last one, the 256 class, I think that was like 5 battles. But if you incorporate the auto battle and the skip battle, you don't add all that additional time into it. So that's without the DLC. Okay, so now let's move on to the next part of the video, and let's discuss classes, which is the whole reason you're probably watching this video. Let me give you a little bit of numbers and math on how this works, right? Just to give you a higher level of understanding if you don't already know. So there are a total of 45 classes for each character. And like I said, when I was just talking about the quests that you're doing, there are 4 different types. There are the Type A, which is 64. There is the Type B, which is 96. Type C, which is 128. And Type D, which is 256. There are 17A, 10B, 16C, and 2D that you have to master completely. Like I mentioned earlier, you start with 5 as a fresh character. Once you level to 9,999, which
9,999,
is relatively easy with the juice bar, you unlock a total of 14 slots. That can be done in a matter of seconds if you have enough of the resources to do that. Every 5 classes that you master, you unlock an Evility slot, with the exception of the 25th class that you master, which unlocks 2, all the way up to the 45. There is 10 total that you have to, Evility slots, there's 10 of them that you have to unlock. Now, the reason the mastering classes is so beneficial is because of what it does for your aptitudes. Now, it doesn't directly affect your stats like extracts do, but it does affect your aptitudes, which I'm going to show you. So this is a brand new character with none of the classes mastered, as you can see here. And just as an example on the screen of what mastering your classes does for you, take a look at her attack aptitude over there on the right hand side. This is a brand new character and it's at 90%, no classes mastered. When you master their classes, you can see the difference here. It's 225 for attack, and I'll show you that as well just for transparency. Everything is mastered, right? So the difference between 225 and 90 is 135 points total. When you divide that by the original 90, that gives you 1.5. You multiply that by 100 to make it a percentage, you get 150% increase to your aptitudes total for every character. Now, why that's important is not necessarily for your stats directly, but it kind of is at the same time, because what aptitudes do is they increase the stats that you get from your gear. So I'm going to show you that as an example as well. So we just took that off of her. So she's got the 10 million in stats from the juice bar. You can see that under character status on the right hand side here. But the reason the aptitudes are essential to this, and a perfect aptitude score is 300, which I'm going to talk about here in a minute as well. This aptitude, for any aptitude, acts as a multiplier for your gear. So as an example, we're going to focus on attack again. It's 225 for this character. You can see that on the right hand side as well. When we go to that Sword of Doom there, the value for attack that this gives you, you can see it right in the middle under the name Sword of Doom. The attack value is 118,000. But then when you look on the right hand side, it's 266 being added to that. That is because that attack aptitude, if you reversed the percentage, 225 divided by 100, that would give you a decimal of 2.25. When you take that 118 from the sword and multiply it 2.25 times, that gives you the 266 that you're seeing on the side. That works with every piece of gear and every stat the gear gives you for these aptitudes. That's why these aptitudes are so important. Now, the aptitudes max at 300, like I said. The best character in this game for aptitudes is the Lady Samurai, because if they do not have a starting stat of 135 or better as a fresh character, and this is a fresh character here, you see they got 95, 140, 90, 95, so on and so forth. Any of the ones below 135, which is the majority of them, will not reach the 300 aptitude cap. Now, there are some abilities that you can use, but not every stat has an ability. The ones that don't have an ability to help increase those aptitudes, if I'm not mistaken, are HP, SP, attack, and hit, which is why it makes the Lady Samurai the best one in terms of aptitude. Thus, these aptitudes lead you to higher stats, which is why it's considered a step in the stat maxing process. Just like I showed you on that diagram, every class proficiency you master is not only increasing your aptitudes, it's also unlocking ability slots to then place more abilities on your character and get more class proficiency. Just like I explained with the stats being a closed system, the class proficiency is sort of a closed system as well that attaches to your stats and helps your stats grow. Now, enough talking, guys. Now for the whole reason you are here. Now it's time for the demonstration. And like I said earlier, I'm going to demonstrate with the DLC ability setup, right? So before we go in here, let me just show you for transparency so you don't accuse me of cheating or anything like that, because I've had that happen before. So here we go. So I'm going to set, these are the hardest ones to master because they have the highest value. So you can assume that if I can do this on one, I should be able to do it on any of them, right? Because they are the highest. So I haven't mastered this one yet, but this is going to be done in a single fight. Right, and so which means all of them can be done in a single fight. So let's go into this. Sorry guys, I'm mashing the wrong buttons here. Let's go into this map real quick. Let me just check, make sure. One other thing I didn't say in the beginning of the video is that when we were talking about the cheat shop, make sure you got the enemy set to level 2, because anything after level 2 you don't get anything out of. It's just pointless. So we're gonna go in here. Our stars are set to level 2 in the cheat shop. We got everything set up the way we wanted it. Let's go in here to this last trial, and I will show you how this can instantly master any class in this game with this setup. So we're just gonna bring him out. We're gonna use our special Rising Heavens at level 8, 3x3 attack. We're gonna bring Suizan out for our additional critical and execute. Look at that. Mastered the highest one in a single fight. Look at that. Now, just so we can review, so you know, just as a double check, checks and balances, that way you can see I'm not pulling your leg here. Let's go and look. Would you look at that? Even the Mecha Girl was mastered with a single fight. And then I can do this one, and I can have this one mastered. So again, if I can do that one with one fight, I can do them all with one fight. You are just going to have to balance your abilities when you're doing this, like I did, because it does. My recommendation is do all of them before you do the level, you know, the type D or 256. Do them all before you do those last two. That way you've got enough ability slots to pull this off. So before we close out, just one final point that I want to make before our summary. I timed this just like I did on the last step that I did, and doing this manually with my DLC setup and without incorporating the auto battle, this takes about, on average, 33 seconds for each class that you master. So if you do the math, 33 seconds for each class, there's 45 classes. I think it takes around 20 minutes to fully complete one character and master their classes. If you do it with the auto battle, which can also be done, it's still one battle per class. You still have to consider those load times in between screens and come out, change their class, go back into the menu, start the auto battle. That whole process is slightly longer using the auto battle. It's about 35 seconds, so it just makes more sense if you are mastering them with one fight each. It's just more sense to just do it manually because it's quicker time. You don't have to worry about as many load screens. But that's it, guys. Doing this method, you see it worked. In summary, we talked about, you know, what you need in order to pull this off, whether it was the cheat shop or you know, the map that you needed. We talked about the gear, we talked about the abilities, we talked about classes, and I gave you some information on that, and then I demonstrated it to you like I said I would. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like and subscribe. Please share it. Please continue to watch. Your support is greatly appreciated, and Winks out.